Hello everybody, I'm JackieKCooper and my entertainment rundown for today is a review of two movies, The Rental and Radioactive. The first movie, The Rental, is directed by Dave Franco. That's James Franco's brother. Both of them are actors. And this is a film that is really twisty, turny. You don't know if it's a horror movie or a suspense movie or just a thriller, but it's about two couples. One couple is played by Dan Stevens and Alison Brie. They're married. Dan Stevens' character is in partnership with an advertising company or something of that sort. His partner is played by Sheila Band, and she is the girlfriend to Stevens' character's brother in the film, played by Jeremy Allen White. Those names aren't going to mean that much to you, but Dan Stevens and Alison Brie might. Dan Stevens was on Downton Abbey and has made some movies since then. But the two couples decide that they are going to rent a cottage, on oceanside cottage, and spend the weekend. That sounds innocent enough. And so they go off, but it's one of those movies where little things, keep coming up and you think, oh, don't get into that. But the partner, Stephen's partner in the business, has a name that associates with the Muslim faith. And when she called to try to rent this place, she was told that it wasn't available. And then she tells Stephen, she said, why don't you see if you can rent it? And so he calls up and they say, oh yes, we'd be glad to have you rent it. So she's already gone with the feeling that they are racist or have something against people of her nationality. So as soon as they get there and they meet the guy who's in charge of the property, she brings that up and kind of gets into an argument with him. Also, when Stevens and his wife go to pick his brother's girlfriend up, they have their dog with them. And Stevens says, it says specifically you cannot bring any pets. And they went, oh, don't worry about it. We'll keep the dog in the car until we get checked in or whatever. But it's those things, those little things that keep throwing everything off balance. And then once they get to the property, that just by the way things are going, that there's something suspicious going on. There's, either a monster or some crazy person or whatever. But something is off. And it builds that momentum. It has does a good job of building the momentum. But the ending, once it comes, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the ending, once it comes, it's twisty, but it's a little bit weak in retrospect. When you think back on it, it's a little bit weak. But the acting is good. All the characters are believable. Dave Franco, again, I think he co-wrote the script also. But he sets his plot line up, the camera work, is eerie, photographing from angles, kind of like you're spying on the characters, that type of thing. So it does work in that respect. But the film is rated R because there is violence and there is profanity. So, all of that is there to be brought in with the drama. But I scored it 6 out of 10, for Dave Franco's initial directing debut. I think that's what this is. He did a pretty good job. At least I think it was above average. So there we have it. The Rental, rated R for violence and profanity, gets a score of 6 out of 10 from me. Our next movie is titled Radioactive, and it is the story of Marie Curie. We all learned about Marie Curie in high school science, story. She won the Nobel Prize, and I didn't know the details of her life. But she is played by Rosamund Pike, who, first time I remember seeing Rosamund Pike was in Pride and Prejudice. movie that I liked so much. She was Keira Knightley's sister in that. She was just beautiful in that movie. In this movie, she is made to look less attractive. She's a woman who is very much into her work. She's a scientist. She feels like her gender keeps holding her back. People do not take her seriously. She wants to have her own study, her own lab, and she's able to maintain, employment, but she doesn't get the respect that she thinks she deserves. And she's a very independent woman. I don't think, from what the story says, never intended to get married, but does fall in love with Philip Curie, played by Sam Riley. And they're married, and she is totally devoted to him. And together, he's a scientist, she's a scientist. She wants to do her own thing. He wants to collaborate because he thinks they work better together than they work apart. And so there's that kind of conflict in it. But it tells the story of her life. She won a Nobel Prize she discovered radium and polonium. Those two are. So, that's the basis. They do a good job of holding your interest, telling her story. She's a little bit more controversial than I thought that she would be, both in her personal life and in her work ethics or habits. But that makes, a good story. They do an annoying thing to me, though. They keep jumping forward in time to show the effects of her discovery in radium treatments, in nuclear weapons. So she keeps flashing forward, not with her story, but just in general, just like a little, just brief couple of minutes, if even that long, section of the future. I don't know why they thought that was a good inventive idea, but it didn't come across as very inventive to me. Rosamund Pike is a good actress. She brings the harshness, the abruptness that is necessary to this role, and she really sells it. So I give her credit for that. But I wanted the movie to spark more. It sparked my intellect, but it didn't spark my emotions in hearing the story as much as I would have liked it to. But it's rated PG-13 because there is profanity and there is some brief nudity in the film. The actors, like I said, are Rosamund Pike, Sam Riley, and then the Curie's daughter, one of her daughters, is played by an actress you'll recognize, Anya Taylor-Joy. She's been in a few things, and once you see her face, you will recognize her. So that is, the story of Madame Curie that we've all heard about. Now we know the story behind the story, so to speak. But reach down there, hit the subscribe button. We want y'all to be here with us with the videos that we give you each week. Be part of the gang. But for today, this has been my entertainment rundown with a review of The Rental and Radioactive.